What's up, guys? It's your boy, JD.
And Haley.
We're back with another reaction video. Let's get it. Today, we got a video about real people that has kind of crazy, strange problems or diseases wrong with their body that we haven't seen before. And this shit really cringe people up.
Not in a mean way though.
Yeah, I'm very interested because I don't even see stuff like that.
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's like very rare, like birth defects or
very rare
diseases.
stuff. But let's get into the video. Hopefully it amazes.
The world is full of incredible sights, stories, and people. In fact, when you look around, there are some rather incredible people that live on this planet. Whether overcoming rare diseases or living a full life despite missing limbs, these following cases are definitely amazing and inspirational. Before we head off to show you these individuals, how about you show us some love by hitting those subscribe and notification buttons? It'll only take a second, and then you'll be sure to always be in the know when it comes to our newest and greatest video releases. Deepak Paswan. When you picture a typical person, what do you imagine? Probably someone with a head, face, 2 arms, 2 legs.
That's
pretty much the standard build of a human being. Now, if we tell you someone is born with 8 limbs, you may wonder how on earth that is possible. After all, a human with extra arms and legs is something usually reserved for comic
probably
books,
got
movies,
more
or
like
even
grip to
sci-fi
grab
thrillers.
things though.
In India, however,
I don't think he can
Deepak
use
Paswan was
those
born with extra
limbs.
limbs. In fact, he had a grand total of 4 arms and 4 legs. When
That's
people looked at
crazy.
Deepak, it appeared as though there was another person stuck in his stomach. And in a
4
way,
arms
there
and 4
was.
legs.
You
Where
see,
is the
he was
other
born with
arm?
a parasitic twin, which resulted
I
in
see
a
2
second
legs
fetus,
and 1
which
arm.
didn't
I guess
fully
in the
develop
That little
into
thing?
Deepak. Unsurprisingly, this octoboy was taunted and called names growing up. By the age of 8, doctors decided to operate on the boy and successfully removed the twin. Amazingly, Deepak now lives a completely normal life and even boasts that he can run faster than his older brothers. Kayan Hamyan. From our story of a boy who was born with several extra limbs, we arrive at the case of an incredible little girl who ended up missing 2 of hers. Kayan Hamyan was only 4 years old when she lost both of her legs in a car accident. Growing up in a poor rural area, she had to improvise when it came to dealing with her disability. Kayan learned to walk using her hands. Interestingly, she also used a basketball in her lower body as a way to steady herself. In that area, she quickly became known as the basketball girl. When she was 10, Kayan received artificial limbs to help her walk. However, this didn't stop her from pushing herself. A year later, she joined a local swim club and began training 4 hours a day. The hard work paid off, and Kayan became a national champion in the Chinese National Paralympic swimming competition. In fact, for the last few years, Kayan has won a number of medals and only narrowly missed out on making it to the 2012 London Paralympics. Indeed, this young woman's story of overcoming adversity is not only amazing, but makes many of our own obstacles seem pretty insignificant. Juliana Wetmore. One of the key things humans use to identify with other humans is their face. After all, we recognize people by their faces, look at their face when we talk, and stare into each other's eyes. From the minute she was born, Juliana Wetmore was up against a whole different challenge. You see, Juliana suffers from Treacher-Collins syndrome, which meant she was missing a lot of the bone structure in her face. In fact, she was missing 40% of her facial bones.
She can a little bit, I think.
Juliana didn't have
No,
a face,
she can't.
even though
I
the
take
rest of
that
her body
back.
and brain
She like
were
made
totally
noises.
fine. In addition to the shock experienced by
It's
her
sad,
parents, the
but
cruelty of the
she's
outside
sweet.
world quickly showed itself with nasty messages, including one social media post saying Juliana should have been euthanized.
That's
Nonetheless,
terrible.
this little girl fought on. Now a teenager, Juliana has gone through 45 surgeries and will likely face more in the future. Despite all of this, she goes to school and communicates with friends and family by way of sign language. Bobby Martin. To an athlete, many of us assume you need to have a complete body in order to compete properly. Competitions such as the Paralympics have demonstrated that this is definitely not the case. But you may be wondering about a sport like football. After all, a player needs to be able to throw, catch, tackle, run, and block. All of this suggests that football is the kind of competition where you need all of your limbs in order to compete. Well, Bobby Martin would definitely disagree with you. Born with Kaldal regression syndrome, Martin has no body from the pelvis downwards. However, even without legs, he made the high school football team and left his mark on the field, often after tackling the opposition player. In addition to his disability, Martin also faced obstacles from officials when they tried to remove him from the game because he wasn't wearing the regulation cleats, thigh, and knee pads. Once everyone came to their senses, the 3-foot 1-inch player was allowed back on the field and ended his senior season with 48 tackles. Mandy Sellers.
Dang,
There's a good
that's
chance
crazy.
if you've spent any
That's
amount of time
awesome,
searching on the
though.
internet, you've seen a few images of Mandy Sellers. When she was born, doctors were immediately worried because her legs were 5 times the normal size. You see,
Dang.
Sellers suffered from a very rare
Oh
genetic
my
disorder, which caused the
God.
skin, tissue, and bone in her lower extremities to grow abnormally. The
Her
result
legs
is that her
are
upper
huge.
body is proportionally normal, while her legs are quite large. In fact, her legs and feet alone were estimated at one point to have weighed as much as 210 pounds. Several years ago, the growth of her legs led to an infection which required the partial amputation of her left leg. Amazingly, after the amputation, her left leg began to regrow at a rapid rate. Within 2 years of the operation, the leg had grown to a meter in girth and was nearly too large for her prosthetic limb. Not
Oh my
defeated, Sellers started
God.
taking trial drugs. Thankfully, the new drugs have seen her legs shrink down to around 150
That's
pounds.
good.
While doctors are unsure how much her legs will shrink, Sellers has done what she always has and kept a very positive outlook. Time
That's
for
inspiring.
our amazing quiz. Robert Wadlow is considered the tallest man to ever live. Do you know how tall he grew to be? We'll see if you're right after
9
these next
foot.
few entries. Jonathan Petra. Our skin is
He
our
died
largest
early.
organ, and we're often
think he
told
had a
that we need
brain
to take care of
tumor,
it. That's
and
why
it
our
kept
parents always
growing and
covered us in
growing.
thick coatings of sunscreen in the summertime, and why they cleaned and bandaged our cuts when we fell down. The parents of Jonathan Petra
Oh, I
pay
saw
special
that.
attention to their son's skin because
That's
Jonathan
so
suffers from a
sad.
very rare condition. Born with epidermolysis bullosa, Jonathan has faced a life of pain and worry. That's
Man,
because
they
this
said that
disease causes
anytime
the
somebody
skin to
touches
blister
him, it
and
hurts,
peel with
like,
the
so
slightest amount of
bad.
friction or contact. As you can imagine, having your
That's so
skin blister
sad.
and peel off with only a little contact is bad enough without also having to worry about potential infections. The added worry in Jonathan's case is that people with EB tend to develop aggressive skin cancer once they get into their 20s. As a result, this brave kid is currently undergoing risky stem cell transplants with the hope it will reverse his condition and allow him to lead a normal and healthy life. Mohammed Khalid. Think of how much you rely on your hands to get through a typical day. After all, you need them to drive, type at the keyboard, pour a glass of milk, and even operate the controller for your PS4 or Xbox One. Generally, everyone's are the same. Sure, some people have really small hands, and others have large hands, but they all generally look and function the same. Then there's Muhammad Khalid. This Indian boy has often been referred to as having the largest hands possessed
How's
by
everybody that's
anyone in the
deformed
world.
always
It is believed
formed?
this condition was brought about by
Yeah.
a disorder known as macrodactyly.
And it's
Nonetheless,
sad
as
'cause a
the
lot
years
of them
passed by,
don't
this
have a
little
lot of
boy's
money
hands continued to grow
to
so big, it
get
made
the
it
proper
hard for him to
treatment.
dress, feed, and generally take care of himself. As an added negative, the superstitious people of Muhammad's village taunted him and branded him as a devil child. It got
That's
so
crazy.
bad that he was even denied entry to the local school for fear he might scare the other children.
Okay,
Thankfully,
well,
he
he
has
wants to
recently
go to
started
school
undergoing
too.
surgeries to reduce the size and increase the functionality of his hands. Claudio Vieira de Oliveira. Imagine being born unable to move your head or limbs. Now imagine also seeing the world upside down because your head was positioned far different than anyone else. Incredibly, when Claudio Vieira de Oliveira was born, the doctors advised his mother to simply let him pass away by starving him intentionally. This seemingly horrible
What?
medical advice stemmed from the
That's
fact that
crazy.
Claudio was not like any other
That must have
normal
been a
baby.
different country.
Born with arthrogryposis, this Brazilian's joints were fused together and his head was positioned upside down and facing backwards. Fortunately, Claudio's mother did not take the advice and she raised him despite his condition. As he grew, he realized
That's what
he
the
could write,
doctors
type,
told him?
and even operate
Yeah.
a phone with his
To
mouth.
starve him?
In the home, he moves around
Yeah,
by
a lot
walking
of
on his
doctors in
knees.
foreign
Travel
countries
outside
are
is a lot
like-
harder, giving Claudio can't use a wheelchair as a result of his
unorthodox.
body shape. Amazingly, he didn't let this hold him back from going to school and getting qualified as an accountant. Nonetheless, he maintains a high degree of independence and even undertakes work doing research, accounting, and occasional motivational speeches to students at his former school. Nick Vujicic. We've all been there at least once in our lives. Maybe it was during tryouts for a team, or perhaps it was while working a particularly tough job. We're talking about coming up against something we perceived as too hard or impossible. So we walked away or didn't try at all. Too often we simply hit snooze or decide to stay on the couch when various challenges arise. Not Nick Vujicic. Despite the fact that he has more reason than most to throw in the towel, this Australian is a fighter who doesn't let anything
He
stop
look
him
happy.
from living his life. Vujicic
Yeah.
was born with tetra amelia, which means he doesn't have 2 full arms and legs as most people. Instead, this 34-year-old only has 2 very small and deformed feet, which he uses for stability. Nonetheless, he graduated from a university, founded a non-profit organization, and became a motivational speaker. He also hasn't let his physical disability affect living a demanding physical life. This active lifestyle includes such activities as
Well, happy
surfing and
as hell.
skydiving.
Yeah,
That's
that's
pretty incredible
good.
considering many able-bodied people would never be be brave enough
Oh,
to
he has a
undertake such
family
activities.
too.
Victoria
That's awesome.
Wright. We live in a world that puts a high value on how we look. In fact, when we think back to our years in school, appearance was often very important. After all, remember having to face your classmates with that massive zit? Ugh, yikes.
They're trying to
Even
make us
Victoria
feel
Wright,
bad.
which is her greatest challenge, was the occasional bit of acne. You see, Wright was diagnosed with cherubism as a child and has lived with all of the challenges brought forward by this disorder. In Wright's case, the disorder caused
What
her
in the
jaw to
world? It looks
dramatically
like,
grow over time. The results of this, in addition to obvious visual deformity, are increased pressure on her eyes and an overall increase in weight of her skull. In fact, doctors have stated that Wright's head has grown so much that it now weighs the same as a bowling ball.
Damn.
Obviously, growing up, this condition made things pretty tough. The English-born
Ah.
woman stated that she was teased, abused, and even called names, such as Buzz Lightyear. Nonetheless, she keeps a positive attitude and avoided
Oh.
having others like you. So, any ideas how big
No, but for
American
real,
Girl
that is
was
sad.
at
I'm
the
praying
peak
for a
of
lot of
its
people
height?
like
The
that.
answer, 8'11".
I wouldn't even gonna
Almost
do that,
NBA
but
player,
damn,
the active is
bro.
Detroit Pistons center.
Somebody
Boban
dirty for that.
Marjanovic, who is 7'3.5" tall.
Dang.
That's still more than 1.5 shorter than Wadla.
They said he was
well,
like
those are
8'10"
definitely some
or
incredible
something.
and amazing people. That's all the time we have for now. But if you're still interested in seeing more unbelievable people, then be sure.
Bro, that is crazy, bro.
It is crazy. It makes me feel bad for like
Didn't know
taking
that.
things for granted.
I ain't know this video was gonna be like that, like sad and stuff. I don't like looking at sad stuff.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah, I promise y'all I would never give y'all another sad video again. I don't know why I didn't think it was gonna be sad. It made
Some
it
of it
seem
isn't
sad,
even
the
that
music and stuff.
sad. Cause some of them are doing a lot
Some
with their
of it
life.
could,
Some of it's a
some
little
of
bit
it could be
inspiring.
inspiration, but I hope y'all like the video, inspire y'all. But I just don't like sad stuff. But videos are for y'all, so y'all say what y'all think in the comments below. Y'all follow us on Instagram, it'll be in the description below. Give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.
Bye.
We'll see y'all
Love y'all.
later. Okay.
Later. Bye.
And now they always say congratulations. Worked so hard, forgot how to vacation. They ain't never had the dedication. People hate and say we changing, look, we made it.